What if I told you there's a tree standing alone in the middle of the saltiest sea on Earth, still alive after decades? Sounds impossible until you actually see it. A mountain, striped like tiramisu rising out of the desert. A waterfall pouring silently beneath the ocean's surface. A lake glowing bubblegum pink under the open sky. No filters, no editing tricks. These places are real, and they've been hiding in plain sight all along. From a volcano that burns electric blue at night, to a canyon carved entirely by cotton-white limestone, to a river that flows in 5 different colors at once. This is a journey through the strangest, most beautiful places on Earth, ones that feel like they shouldn't exist. But they do right now somewhere on this planet. So let's find out just how wild, how wonderful, and how real our Earth still is. Glittering against the grey desert, Dachaidan Emerald Lake opens into a chain of glowing lakes, born from the remains of an abandoned chemical mine. Deep mining pits once cut into the ground by machines are now filled with groundwater and melted snow, turning industrial scars into a surreal landscape. Because the salt and mineral levels are different. Each nearby pool carries its own color, from emerald green to bright lemon yellow. When the water evaporates, salt crystallizes into hard white edges around the still lake surfaces, turning each pool into a cold, bright mirror of the sky. From above, narrow dirt roads cut across the white salt ground, dividing those neon lakes into sharp color blocks on a strange mineral map. Surrounded by gray, empty land with almost no trees, the whole landscape feels like a strange piece of another planet trapped in the desert. Not waking through a familiar volcanic crater, Fagradalsfjall in Iceland opened the ground into fiery cracks after more than 800 years of sleep. From fissures stretching for miles, lava rose like curtains of fire, then flowed across the grey basalt desert like the hot pulse of the planet. When the flow, hotter than 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, met the cold air, Its outer layer quickly turned black, formed a basalt crust, and cracked with sharp sounds like breaking glass. At the same time, invisible sulfur dioxide gas could settle into low areas, forming pale toxic haze above the glowing red ground. At night, the red glow from the lava reflected onto low clouds, making the polar sky look like an artificial sunset that refused to fade. Although it burned old moss and rock, the new basalt will eventually break down into fertile soil, allowing Fagradal's Fjall to open the way for new life. Tricking the eye above a calm sea surface, the underwater waterfall in Mauritius creates the illusion of a giant waterfall dropping into a dark blue abyss. The strange part is that if you stand on the shore or pass by in a boat, you mostly see only peaceful blue water, with no waterfall sound or sign of collapse. From above, the scene finally becomes clear like a turquoise painting, where white sand, bright, shallow water, and a deep, dark blue strip connect together. In reality, not a single drop of water is falling. Only white sand and sediment are being pulled by currents over the edge of the continental shelf. The shallow water is only about 26 to 492 feet deep, but near the edge of the illusion, the sea floor suddenly drops more than 13,120 feet. The mix of sunlight angle, sand color, water clarity, and underwater terrain makes this wonder feel like a fragile optical equation that appears only from the sky. Standing out between dark green forest and the rolling ocean, Lake Hillier looks like a spilled bucket of bubblegum paint, with pink water that almost never fades. This thick solution has a salinity of about 34%, equal to about 45 ounces of salt per gallon, almost 10 times saltier than normal seawater. That surreal pink color is not magic, but comes from algae and ancient bacteria that create pigment to protect themselves from extreme salt and ultraviolet light. Unlike many pink lakes that change color with the seasons, this water still keeps its clear pink shade even when it is scooped into a transparent glass. The salinity is so high that almost no fish, frogs, or larger animals can live there, while the lake surface stays heavy and still like a block of color held in place. Once used for salt mining in the late 19th century, Lake Hillier still lies quiet, like a stain that cannot be erased, where pink water makes the landscape look as if it slipped off the earth. In water so salty that almost no living thing can survive, Dead Sea Tree still appears like a lonely green sprout on the thick emerald blue surface. The island holding it up is made of white crystallized salt, where rising moisture makes salt cling around the trunk and roots like a fossil shell. The surrounding water has a salinity of about 34.2%, almost 10 times saltier than normal seawater, making it feel more like a thick mineral solution than a source of life. Not only is this water extremely salty, but it also sits about 1,412 feet below sea level, where heat above 104 degrees Fahrenheit often leaves a light haze floating around the salt island. Yet this green sprout did not grow here naturally, but is an art installation fed by a hidden layer of nutrient-rich soil beneath the salt. That surprising truth makes Dead Sea Tree feel even more like a real but impossible scene, like a small piece of another planet dropped onto Earth. Sticking out horizontally from the cliff like a stone tongue hanging in the sky, Trolltunga in Norway floats about 2,297 feet above the deep blue glacial lake below. This rare flat rock was created tens of thousands of years ago when water entered cracks, froze, expanded, and separated the rock from the mountainside. Stepping near the edge, a person feels placed inside a three-dimensional open space with no railings, no fences, and no man-made support. Even in the middle of summer, thick fog or sudden snow can arrive in less than 15 minutes, quickly making the rock surface slippery. Far below that height, the glacial lake lies flat like a mirror, reflecting the cliffs and sky, making the line between depth and height hard to judge. Because the rock is wider than photos usually show, Trolltunga is both a solid natural structure and a dizzying illusion that makes viewers struggle to believe it is real. Like a giant slice of cake cut open under the desert sun, Kizilkup appears with brick red, chalk white, pale pink, and clay brown bands stacked in an unbelievably even order. Its nickname, the Tiramisu Mountains, does not come from legend, but from ancient sediment layers, piled on each other like cake layers cut open by nature. The white color comes from chalk, while the red and brown shades are traces of iron oxide in clay exposed after a long time of weathering. Over thousands of years, desert wind and rainwater have worn the soft sediment into smooth, rolling ridges, curved like frozen buttercream. Because the soil is salty, dry, and almost without fresh water, plants struggle to take root, leaving the colored hills bare under the blue sky. With no paved roads, almost no phone signal, and only satellite coordinates to guide the way, Kizilkup feels like a geological slice still hidden by the desert. In the deep green rainforest, Caño Cristales opens into a red, pink, yellow, and green riverbed moving across rock more than 1.2 billion years old. This bright color palette does not come from minerals, but begins with clusters of aquatic plants clinging like a thin carpet to the river floor. When they receive enough sunlight through the clear water, these plants glow red and pink, soft like velvet, moving with the current. Because the water has almost no mud or dissolved minerals, it becomes clear like a lens, magnifying every stone slab and plant vein below. Beneath that clear water, swirling currents trap hard pebbles inside rock pockets, turning them into natural drills that form round holes over tens of thousands of years. This colorful masterpiece appears only by season, because when the water drops and the light shifts, the bright river can quietly return to the muted color of stone. Glowing white on the hillside like a cotton waterfall turned to stone. Pamukkale in Turkey, rows of turquoise hot pools across curving travertine steps. From a distance, those white steps look like soft snow or fluffy cotton, but when touched, they feel solid, while steam from 95 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit still rises in a mist. Over millions of years, underground springs, rich in calcium carbonate, reached the surface, lost carbon dioxide, and left behind white minerals that slowly hardened. From those mineral layers built up over time, nature slowly raised countless uneven pool edges, making the whole hillside look like a white structure growing layer by layer. In the shallow pools, saturated minerals and the white limestone floor bend the sunlight, creating a turquoise color that seems to glow from within. When water spills over the step edges, it leaves behind white stone curtains, making Pamukkale look like a waterfall held by time in the middle of falling. Shaped like a stone, T-Rex bending down to drink from the sea, Keling King Beach in Indonesia reveals a limestone cliff about 650 feet high with a green spine stretching out toward the ocean. That unbelievable shape was created by millions of years of sea wind, strong waves, and erosion carving the limestone and soft sandstone. From above, the white beach below looks like a small strip of silk caught between silver-gray cliffs and water that suddenly changes color. Within only a few yards of water, the bright turquoise near the shore quickly turns deep blue, revealing the hidden depth and power beneath the ocean's clear surface. The path down to the beach follows a narrow and steep stone spine, allowing the untouched beauty below to survive because of that difficult access. At the foot of the cliff, large waves and strong hidden currents keep striking the white sand, making King Beach feel both beautiful and unbelievable, like a prehistoric creature sleeping beside the sea. When white clouds swallow the valley floor, Zhangjiajie turns more than 3,000 quartz sandstone pillars into a stone forest hanging in the sky. Over millions of years, rain, wind, and flowing water wore away the softer rock, leaving ancient pillars about 380 million years old, standing close together. In many places, the bases have eroded faster than the harder tops, making huge rock masses look as if they are balancing on narrow necks. Inside the maze of closely packed stone pillars, even wind and small sounds can echo across many sandstone walls, making the space feel deeper, like a bottomless rock canyon. On the almost vertical sandstone cliffs, old pine roots still slip into cracks and twist along the cliff edge, like life growing out of cold stone. After rain, sunset light catches the quartz on the cliffs, making the grey stone forest glow like golden columns between clouds and mist. Glowing in the darkness with neon blue fire, Kawaiian appears like a strange chemical stage opened on volcanic ground. That light is not lava, but sulfur gas, heated to about 1,112 degrees Fahrenheit, rising through cracks, meeting cold air, and burning brightly. Just below the blue fire, the world's largest acid lake lies still with an unbelievably beautiful turquoise color, yet it is strong enough to corrode metal. When daylight comes, barren gray cliffs, the turquoise lake, and lemon-yellow sulfur blocks create a natural color palette that is both brilliant and toxic. Thick white clouds of sulfur dioxide drift across the crater floor, making the scene look like a giant chemical laboratory of Earth. From deep cracks, hot gas keeps bursting upward, holding erosion between surreal beauty and rare chemical power. Drop together from a cliff that looks torn open as Tumpak Sewu in Indonesia spreads into a giant white arc beneath the shadow of an active volcano. Asha. Instead of falling from one single river, the water pours out through countless cracks across a cliff hundreds of feet wide, forming white silk-like streams that cover the mountainside. From a distance, the semicircle waterfall, fractured canyon, and cloud-covered volcanic peak create a scene like a natural stage from prehistoric time. When the water falls about 394 feet into the canyon floor, the force of impact turns it into a cold mist that almost always covers the entire gorge. That constant moisture feeds green moss and ferns growing thickly on rock faces not directly hit by the falling water, making the dark cliff look like a living wall. Between cold mist, green moss, and the volcanic shadow behind it, Tumpak Sewu keeps a wild beauty, like a world of water newly opened from inside the stone. Like a forest dropped onto the sea, Raja Ampat in Indonesia spreads out like the Amazon of the ocean, where green-covered limestone rocks rise thickly from the clear water. Over millions of years, sea waves carved away the bases of the karst rocks, making many cliffs look like giant mushrooms, floating in the blue. The water is clear for more than 130 feet, acting like a natural lens that reveals seafloor shadows, coral patches, and boats that seem to be flying. Around the rock bases, emerald green water near the shore quickly turns into deep indigo blue, revealing the thin line between shallow water and the open sea abyss. Beneath the surface, the seafloor folds into underwater canyons, steep walls, and dark caves where neon coral grows thick like a living city. When tropical roots touch the sea edge and neon coral glows below, Raja Ampat feels like a place where the green forest and the ocean breathe together inside one living body. From the edge of a flat tabletop mountain, Angel Falls drops a silver stream nearly 3,281 feet into the rainforest, holding the record as the tallest uninterrupted waterfall in the world. The waterfall does not fall from a sharp mountain peak, but drops straight from an almost 90-degree sandstone wall where the summit has been isolated for millions of years. Because the falling distance is so great, the water can be torn into fine mist by wind and air, slowly fading in the sky before it reaches the canyon floor. At the foot of the falls, the sound of the water is no longer a violent roar, but becomes a cold, whispering murmur inside the thick mist. When sunlight passes through the floating spray, a full-circle rainbow can appear along the cliff, making the scene feel like a doorway of light hanging in the air. Below, the water carries a dark, tea-red color from tannins released by decaying plants, while rainforest clouds often cover the cliff, making Angel Falls appear clearly one moment and vanish the next. On the dark grey edge of the sea, Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland opens into more than 40,000 tightly fitted hexagonal basalt columns, like a stone road that Earth itself has paved toward the ocean. This almost man-made geometric masterpiece began about 60 million years ago when lava, hotter than 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit, slowly cooled, shrank, and cracked into straight-edged blocks. Most of the columns have 6 sharp sides, standing close together like a stone honeycomb or machine-cut puzzle pieces. From above, their uneven heights make them look like a broken stone keyboard. Then they gradually drop into black steps, sinking beneath the cold sea. Inside those stone steps, uneven basalt layers lock tightly together like bone joints, helping the whole structure withstand the constant force of ocean waves. Among grey stone, green moss, and white sea foam, Giant's Causeway feels like nature's geometric blueprint, where Earth proves that perfection does not need a human hand. In the almost unbelievably clear blue sea, the Phi Islands in Thailand rise with limestone cliffs hundreds of feet high, almost standing at 90 degrees from the ocean's surface. Instead of forming gentle shores, the rocks here are cut into huge vertical faces, making the coastline look like a natural fortress rising from the sea floor. Under strong sunlight, the white limestone sand reflects through the turquoise water, making wooden boats sometimes look as if they are floating in the air. Behind narrow rock gaps, many saltwater areas are almost 360 degrees enclosed by cliffs, making the sound of the open sea almost disappear. On the upright grey rock faces, tropical tree roots still slip into cracks and cling tightly, like life growing out of cold stone. When a moonless night falls, glowing plankton can turn the dark sea around the Phi Islands into a tropical paradise that feels both real and unreal. Rising from the water like a cracking blue fortress, Perito Moreno Glacier in Argentina makes the horizon look blocked by a living wall of ice. Across this ice mass, covering about 97 square miles, layers of ice compressed over thousands of years glow with a deep sapphire blue color under the sunlight. Its front wall rises about 243 feet above the water, while the hidden part below reaches down about 558 feet, like giant frozen roots. Although it looks massive and still, the ice tongue slowly moves toward the opposite shore, locking the water like a natural dam and pushing the two water levels apart by about 98 feet. From that quiet pressure, the space around the lake suddenly shakes with deep thunder-like cracks before huge ice sections collapse, throwing up columns of water and white freezing mist. After each break, fresh ice edges shine through the cold mist, making this glacier feel like a natural wonder breathing in a frozen world. Smoothed into a silver-gray field of pitted rock, Vela de Lua makes the ground look like a piece of the moon dropped by mistake into a thorny savanna. Over millions of years, water-carrying sand and gravel worked like a natural grinding machine, slowly carving the hard rock little by little. What remains are curved grooves, round holes, and narrow water channels woven together, making the stone surface look like a maze carved by time. The naturally polished surface causes quartz to reflect the overhead sunlight, turning the whole rock floor into a bright, dazzling matrix. Flowing through that stone matrix, the water is so clear that it tricks the eye, making holes about 16 feet deep look like only a thin layer on the rock. In the rainy season, swirling currents sweep mud and sand from the natural pool floors, revealing the silver-gray rock beneath the cold water like a landscape from another planet. Each blue-green step of water seems to be building its own lake edge, making Plitvice Lakes National Park in Croatia appear like a living water staircase hidden deep in the forest. These lake edges are not lifeless stone, but travertine barriers built day by day by moss, algae, bacteria, and calcium carbonate minerals. because these natural barriers keep growing. The shapes of the lakes, streams, and waterfalls do not stay still, but quietly change over time. Under different sunlight angles, minerals and microorganisms make the water shift from emerald green to clear blue, turquoise, and silver gray, like an illusion in the forest. The water is filtered through limestone so clearly that at more than 20 feet deep, people can still see white, mineral-covered tree trunks lying on the bottom. Between the dark forest, bright waterfalls, and mineral-covered trees, Plitvice Lakes feels like a place where time does not flow away, but quietly hardens into living steps of water. Stretching bare branches like roots touching the sky, the avenue of the baobabs in Madagascar stands along the red dirt road like a row of giant living pillars. These trees can reach up to 98 feet high and live for more than 800 years, yet they no longer stand inside a thick forest, but alone among grassland and low shrubs. In reality, they are surviving remains of an ancient tropical forest that was once cleared to make space for farmland. Thanks to their sponge-like trunks, each tree can store more than 31,700 gallons of water to survive 9 dry months. Strangely, when a baobab dies, it does not fall as a huge wooden trunk, but rots from the inside and collapses with almost no trace left behind. And under the sunset light, their shadows stretch across the dusty road, while the ancient trunks stand still like the last remaining memory of a lost forest. Far beyond lifeless wonders, the Great Barrier Reef stretches like a giant biological structure large enough to be recognized from outer space. The three-dimensional maze beneath the sea is actually a limestone skeleton thousands of miles long, slowly built by billions of coral polyps over millions of years. These tiny creatures pull minerals from seawater, then shape them into branching and layered coral blocks like a living city. From above, the ocean turns into a giant mosaic where turquoise patches, dark blue channels, and coral shadows you weave together. Although it covers only a very small part of the ocean, this reef still supports more than 25% of known marine life. When night falls, that city wakes up with millions of tentacles catching plankton. Then once a year, covers the sea with a pink and white snowstorm of new life. Beneath the clear blue water, the marble caves open into white-grey stone arches that curve like a great hall carved by light. For more than 6,000 years, cold waves have kept wearing down the rock walls, carving them into arches, pillars, and soft, winding passages. The meltwater is so clear that people can see about 98 to 131 feet deep, revealing the hidden rock below through the transparent water. Sunlight passes through the water and reflects onto rock made of nearly 95% calcium carbonate, creating a bright fluorescent blue illusion on the marble surface. Across that glowing surface, black, gray, and pink veins appear in the white stone, like wild brushstrokes trapped inside the marble. Because clouds, wind, water level, and sunlight angle keep changing, every look inside the cave reveals a different scene, like a natural moment that lights up only once. Like a white cut between dry land and deep sea, the Great Australian Bight reveals a fierce border between a barren limestone plateau and the rolling ocean. Unlike coastlines that slope gently down to sand, the continental edge here drops almost straight into the water, creating a line of cliffs that stretches for hundreds of miles. Above is a flat plain with almost no trees, while below, waves from the Southern Ocean keep striking the foot of the cliffs. Over millions of years, that water power has carved into the limestone below, making this majestic coastline, constantly rewritten by the ocean. Yet just under the rough water is a rare living world where more than 85% of marine life is endemic and large whales come to breed. Step back about 164 feet and you hear the silence of the plain, but near the cliff edge, the roar of the sea makes this place feel almost too strange to be real. Unlike ordinary coral beaches, Whitehaven Beach spreads out like a dazzling strip of white powder, making the emerald green water beside it look even more unreal. The sand here contains up to 98% pure silica, so it is bright white, smooth, and light like powder under the Australian sun. What feels hard to believe is that even when summer temperatures can reach 104 degrees Fahrenheit, the sand surface does not hold heat, so bare feet can walk across it without burning. When the tide shifts, turquoise water slips through the white sandbanks, creating a blue and white mosaic that changes every minute. The water can be clear down to about 33 feet, making the shadows of boats sometimes look as if they are floating in the air. From far away, the whole beach looks like a white and blue ribbon changing shape, making Whitehaven Beach feel like a real paradise that is almost too beautiful to believe. Tottori Sand Dunes, Japan. Along the coast of Japan, the Tottori Sand Dunes appear like a golden desert formed by a rare combination of wind, ocean currents, and sediment for more than 100,000 years. What makes geologists curious is that winds and sea currents keep pushing sand back onto the shore, making these dunes constantly change shape like a moving landscape. When the wind reaches about 11 to 13 miles per hour, the sand surface creates repeating natural geometric ripples that can disappear after only hours or days. Beneath the dry sand, groundwater can suddenly form temporary ponds and then vanish again, leaving the movement of this dune system not fully understood. Dune slopes, rising up to 154 feet toward the sea, together with artifacts sometimes exposed by wind and buried again, make Tartary a natural wonder, with many geological mysteries still hard to explain. Østfold Glacier Waterfalls, Norway. In a frozen place near the edge of the world, Østfold appears like a giant wall of ice crying as hundreds of white waterfalls pour from inside the ice and fall into the Black Sea. This wall belongs to the third largest ice cap in Europe, covering more than 3,089 square miles, stretching nearly 124 miles, and rising about 98 feet above the water. These waterfalls appear only for a short time in summer, when melting ice moves through cracks and turns the whole ice wall into a breathtaking curtain of white water. The space that seems quiet is often broken by ice cracking sounds as loud as thunder, when giant ice blocks break apart and crash into the sea. To watch this rare scene, visitors must travel by small boat and keep a safe distance, because one collapsing ice block can create very dangerous waves. Yangshuo, China. Yangshuo feels like the memory of an ancient ocean rising into mountains, where more than 20,000 limestone towers stand among rivers, fields, and mist like a giant ink painting. More than 200 million years ago, this rock still lay under the sea. Then tectonic forces lifted it up, so rain and underground water could slowly carve karst peaks, caves, and vertical cliffs. Because the stone towers grow so densely, they trap moisture in the valleys, letting mist hang around the mountains and making the landscape move between reality and dream. Beneath that scene, rice fields, water buffalo, old roofs, and a cormorant fishing tradition over 1,300 years old show that people here do not separate from nature, but live slowly with the rhythm of rivers and mountains. When still water reflects both sky and cliffs, a bamboo raft seems to travel between two layers of space, turning Yangshuo into a place where geology, culture, and poetry merge into one living image. Anjihai Canyon, China. Hidden in a dry desert landscape, Anji Canyon suddenly tears the ground open into a violent abyss 1,312 feet deep, revealing a surreal and overwhelming world. Unlike dull gray cliffs, this place glows with bands of red, deep purple, and emerald green, looking like a giant oil painting spilled by nature. When you look down to the bottom, thousands of muddy water streams twist together, forming a network that looks like the beating blood vessels of the planet. Along both sides of the canyon, years of erosion have carved the earth walls into folds falling downward, soft like the train of an evening dress, but ready to collapse at any moment. That is why standing near the unprotected cliff edge makes humans feel small before the cruel yet fascinating carving power of nature. Arco del Tiempo, Mexico. Deep in the jungle of Mexico, Arco del Tiempo opens like a giant stone gateway 650 feet high, where millions of tons of limestone still hang without supporting columns. This arch began forming tens of millions of years ago, when flowing water did not carve a normal canyon, but pierced through the mountain and left a massive roof above. What geologists find hard to explain is how the stone roof still keeps such an astonishingly balanced shape after long erosion, while gravity and the river below keep acting on it. Beneath the darkness of the arch, jade green water rich in calcium carbonate reflects bright light while hiding sinkholes and powerful underground currents. Its separate microclimate, sunlight entering only at special moments of the year, and near-perfect preservation deep in the forest make Arco del Tiempo a natural wonder whose formation still has mechanisms science cannot fully explain. Hengifoss Waterfall, Iceland. In a cold and wild landscape, Hengifoss Waterfall appears like a giant bleeding slash on a black cliff, with water falling from a height of 420 feet. Behind the waterfall, the bright red stripes, trapped between black rock layers, are actually iron-rich clay and volcanic ash, once baked by lava hotter than 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit until they turned dry blood red. Each red and black stripe feels like a cycle of life and death, where the red marks a peaceful time of plants growing before black lava from a new eruption buried everything. In sharp contrast to the rough and heavy giant rock behind it, the water falls straight into the deep gorge like a clean white flash of lightning. To see this strange bleeding colored cliff with their own eyes, visitors must climb a steep trail about 2 miles one way, making the beauty of Hengifoss feel even more valuable and challenging. Dalmatian Coast, Croatia. The Dalmatian coast feels like a white stone wall lifted from the sea, where the collision of tectonic plates helped create a coastline about 497 miles long beside the deep blue Adriatic. Over millions of years, rainwater dissolved the limestone, carving underground caves, sinkholes, and karst cliffs, rising more than 5,577 feet beside the sea. Because the seabed is mostly white pebbles and limestone, instead of muddy sand, the water is so clear that you can see nearly 164 feet below the surface. Against this natural setting, old towns, fortresses, and stone walls were built from the same white limestone of the region, turning the coast into a border fought over by empires for centuries. When the winter Bora wind clears the sky and sunset paints the cliffs pink and orange, Dalmatia becomes not only a beautiful coast, but a place where geology, war, and Mediterranean memory all leave their mark. Lavaux Vineyard Terraces, Switzerland. Like a mountainside stitched together with stone, this place carries vineyard terraces for more than 19 miles as they slide down toward jade-colored water. What makes it special is that the vines do not live only on direct sunlight, but also receive reflected light from a lake about 224 square miles wide and warmth stored inside stone walls. Because the soil is only about 12 to 20 inches deep over limestone, the roots must push into rock cracks to find water and minerals, giving the wine a very distinct character. Since the 11th century, monks turned steep hillsides into terraces, while the lake, more than 1,017 feet deep below, helps soften summer heat and protect against early spring frost. That is why every autumn, when vine leaves turn yellow, orange, and deep red, Laveau looks not only like a fire beside the lake, but also like a 1,000-year trace of human labor and climate working as one. Garni Gorge, Armenia. From a distance, Garni Gorge looks like a giant structure built by a lost civilization with thousands of vertical basalt columns covering the cliff walls. These hexagonal and pentagonal columns formed when ancient lava cooled slowly and cracked, but their symmetry and order still make many people doubt that nature created them. What puzzles geologists is that many stone angles come close to a perfect 120 degrees, while nature rarely creates such even straight lines on a large scale. When the stone structure is cut across, scientists see that the hexagon is the most efficient shape for spreading thermal shrinking force, as if Earth's crust found its own geometric rule. Wind passing through the rock gaps creates a giant organ-like sound, while the stone shifts from black to reddish-purple at sunset, making Garni both a geological wonder and a natural architectural mystery. Lake Garda, Italy. Lake Garda feels like a giant blue hollow left by glaciers below the Alps, covering 143 square miles and reaching 1,135 feet deep, enough to hold the largest body of fresh water in Italy. That deep funnel-shaped basin does not only store water, but also works like a natural climate machine, making the lakeside warmer than the colder mountain areas around it. Because of this, palms, lemon groves, and sun-loving plants still grow beneath snowy peaks and grey cliffs, creating a rare contrast between alpine climate and Mediterranean color. Every day, cold northern wind strikes the water in the morning. Then warmer southern wind returns in the afternoon, turning the lake into a changing stage between wild force and calm beauty. That is why the Roman ruins, stone fortresses, lemon houses, and roads cut into cliffs are not simply beside a beautiful view, but on a border where glaciers, wind, water, and human life shaped history together. Jawatan Forest, Indonesia. Walking into Jawatan Forest feels like entering a magical woodland where twisted and rough old trees look like giant sleeping creatures. The old Trembesi trees here have canopies spreading more than 164 feet wide, joining together into a thick roof that lets sunlight fall only in soft, dim beams. In this half-bright and half-dark space, the tree trunks are covered with thick green moss, making them look like monsters wearing armor made of plants. On the ground, the roots rise up like giant pythons, forming rough paths that make every visitor watch their steps carefully. Few people know this forest was once an abandoned timber storage area. Then trees grew back strongly, while the old railway tracks still remain as traces of the past. Port Campbell National Park, Australia. Port Campbell feels like a stone wall slowly being taken apart by the ocean, where rock stacks up to 164 feet high were once part of an ancient seabed lifted over millions of years. With no land barrier to the south, cold wind and waves strike the coast directly, carving limestone into vertical cliffs, sea caves, and separated rock towers offshore. That beauty once came with danger, because fog, storms, and hidden reefs destroyed more than 700 ships in the 19th century. Along the cliff edge, the coastal road was cut by soldiers after World War I, using picks, shovels, and explosives, turning a scenic journey into a long war memory beside the sea. So when salty mist rises from breaking waves and sunset burns the cliffs red, this place does not feel peaceful, but beautiful, with time, loss, and the endless power of the sea. El Tatio, Chile. On the freezing high plateau of northern Chile, El Tatio erupts from the desert like a giant geothermal machine, where water and heat escape from underground in ways still not fully understood. At 14,173 feet, low air pressure makes water boil at 187 degrees Fahrenheit, creating pools and steam columns that may seem not hot enough, but have already reached the boiling limit there. The greatest mystery lies in the underground fracture network, because geologists still cannot clearly map how hundreds of vents connect to the deep magma source below. In pools filled with arsenic and extreme heat, extremophile bacteria still survive, making El Tatio a place to study the limits of life on Earth and ancient Mars. White steam columns, colorful sulfur ground, and constant boiling water make El Tatio feel like an alien landscape where many geothermal mechanisms remain scientifically debated. Blue Tears, Sea, China. When night falls, Blue Tears Sea turns the dark ocean into a huge blue glow, lighting up with each wave as if the sea is shining by itself. This magical light is a natural defense of billions of tiny plankton, helping them glow to scare away enemies in the dark. They only flash when waves, wind, or human footsteps disturb them. So each strong wave or footprint on the sand can make the sea shine with cold blue light. This phenomenon is usually strongest from late spring to early summer, when the water temperature and wind direction are right, so chasing blue tears always feels exciting and unpredictable. Sadly, this fragile beauty can easily be hidden by city lights, so only when full darkness returns can the ocean show its glowing performance completely. Ilha do Carvão, Portugal. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, Ilha do Carvão opens downward like a hollow volcanic chimney, where magma once drained back underground and left a dark void nearly 295 feet deep. The strange part is that the roof of the magma chamber did not collapse after the lava disappeared, but still holds itself through a stone balance that leaves geologists with many questions. The cave walls are covered with dark volcanic rock, while fading light from the entrance creates layers of life, from green ferns to moss, algae and fungi clinging to wet stone. Cold rainwater still seeps through the rock to form silica stalactites and an underground lake, although this process does not fully match many common geochemical models. soundless zones, a seasonal disappearing lake, and microorganisms living in darkness make Alga do Carvão one of the volcanic wonders with many mechanisms still not clearly explained. Ushguli, Georgia. Hovering above a rolling sea of clouds at 7,218 feet, this fairy tale settlement creates a surreal feeling beneath one of the purest and deepest blue skies in the Caucasus. As sunset falls, the summer meadows transform into a glowing landscape where pink evening light spreads across valleys filled with vibrant wildflowers. Rising through that wild scenery are hundreds of stone towers standing 66 to 82 feet tall, built from natural slate since the 9th century without mortar. Connected like a giant mountain fortress, the towers shine with small golden lights from narrow windows, casting a quiet and mysterious glow across the night valley. Hidden deep among moss-covered stone paths are ancient churches, preserving fading frescoes, giving Ushguli a sacred beauty that feels both peaceful and heartbreaking. Sumgan Kutuk, Russia. In the middle of a dense forest, Sumgan Kutuk suddenly opens like a black monster mouth, forming a vertical sinkhole that drops 380 feet into the earth. Because there is no walking path, the only way down is to use ropes on the slippery rock wall, making every foot feel like a risk to your life. The cave is so deep that if you drop a stone from the rim, you must wait nearly 5 seconds before hearing its impact echo from the darkness. When you reach the bottom, the scene turns into a frozen kingdom, with ice waterfalls, ice-covered walls, and clear crystal like ice formations. At the cave floor, wild animal bones are scattered everywhere, while deeper inside lies a 6-mile underground maze with black rivers flowing quietly. Gegeti Trinity Church, Georgia. On a mountainside nearly 7,120 feet high, this church is not placed only to be seen. but where people must look upward as if searching for support between sky and stone. Since the 14th century, carrying heavy volcanic stones up the slope by human strength and pack horses has made this building proof of medieval endurance and faith. Its position near the mountain edge forces the church to face winds that can reach 50 miles per hour, while the snowy mountain over 16,581 feet behind it makes the landscape feel colder and more sacred. That is why the architecture here does not need luxury, only a separate bell tower, grey stone walls, narrow shafts of light, and fading frescoes to create a deep silence. During the short, warm months, snow pulls back from the hillside, and mountain grass with wildflowers grows around the cold stone base, reminding us that this place survives not by fighting nature, but by learning to live with it. Fairy Circles, Namibia. From above, fairy circles appear like millions of mysterious red dots across the desert, bare in the center, but surrounded by a very even ring of green grass. These circles, about 7 to 49 feet wide, stretch for more than 1,243 miles, yet they almost never touch or overlap, keeping an even spacing like an army formation. What makes them strange is that the bare soil inside may help rainwater sink deeper underground, and that water then feeds the grass around the edge through harsh, dry seasons. Even so, science still has no complete answer, because one theory says sand termites create the empty spots, while another says plants arrange themselves this way to compete for water. This impossible order makes local people see them as footprints of spirits, and only from above can you truly see the overwhelming scale of this landscape. Tugela Falls, South Africa. Standing in the highlands of South Africa, Tugela Falls appears like a white ribbon across a giant basalt wall, then drops into an abyss 3,110 feet deep. As the second highest waterfall in the world, Tugela becomes fierce in the rainy season with roaring water, but in the dry season, it can shrink into a thin thread, 'or' or' 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 The cliff around the waterfall is seen as a natural architectural masterpiece of Africa, with a rock wall up to 3 miles long and always more than 3,281 feet high. To see the full view, visitors must cross steep mountain trails, exposed cliffs, and unpredictable highland weather, where nature still keeps its wild and untouched feeling. In the local language, the waterfall's name means something that causes amazement or a rushing river, reflecting human fear and respect for the power of the waterfall. Chane Timpishka, Peru. Hidden deep inside the Amazon rainforest, the deadly Chane Timpishka River stretches more than 4 miles and boils at 210 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cook almost any creature that falls in by accident. The strangest thing is that this giant boiling channel is not close to any volcano, but its extreme heat rises from a deep geothermal fault system beneath the ground. As people move through the thick leaves to get closer, they see a ghostly curtain of steam rising from water that looks shockingly clear and calm. But that clear and peaceful beauty is actually a cruel trap, because the water temperature can kill living creatures in just a few moments. To reach the river, visitors must walk on slippery, muddy trails with almost no protective barriers, making every step feel like a matter of life and death. Fingal's Cave, Scotland. From a distance, Fingal's Cave appears like a black stone cathedral in the sea, so majestic and mysterious that many people could imagine it was built by an ancient civilization. As you come closer, the whole cave reveals tens of thousands of giant basalt columns, mostly sharp, hexagonal shapes, fitted together so neatly that they look machine-cut. In truth, this unbelievable perfection formed from ancient lava that cooled tens of millions of years ago, causing the rock to shrink and crack into natural geometric columns. Inside the space, which reaches 227 feet deep and 72 feet high, waves keep hitting the hollow stone walls and create deep echoes like an organ inside an abandoned cathedral. In summer, the waves inside the cave sound musical, but in winter, Atlantic storms create a furious sound that inspired Mendelssohn to write a timeless symphony Paranthampara, India. Known as a wild, hidden gem in the hills of southern India, Paranthampara leaves a strong impression with the contrast between peaceful grassland and a deadly abyss only one step apart. The name Paranthampara comes from the large rock stretching toward the cliff edge, because its shape looks like a giant eagle spreading its wings in the open air. The atmosphere becomes even more mysterious when thick fog rises quickly from the valley floor, swallowing the cliffs and people before suddenly clearing under the sunlight. Its untouched emptiness, with no concrete steps or modern cable cars, keeps Paranthampara raw, free, and full of risk for anyone who wants to reach it. Itaimbazinho Canyon, Brazil. Unlike many canyons slowly carved by water, Itaimbazinho is linked to ancient lava flows from 135 to 130 million years ago, when a massive volcanic event created its black basalt foundation. In the calm green plateau of southern Brazil, this cut suddenly opens into a canyon 2,362 feet deep, as if the ground were torn apart and then hidden beneath plants. What makes geologists curious is that the cliffs still stand almost vertical after millions of years, even though wind, water, and gravity should have worn them into slopes. In the rainy season, waterfalls pour from the plateau edge but are blown back into the air by strong winds, making the water seem to vanish before touching the bottom. The combination of vertical basalt cliffs, reverse-flowing waterfalls, and a covering green plateau makes Itaimbazinho a volcanic wonder, whose formation still has many mechanisms not fully explained. Canary Islands, Spain. In the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Africa, this archipelago feels like land lifted from the sea by volcanoes, where black rock, red soil, and blue ocean create a very unusual beauty. One special thing here is its ancient cloud forest, where mist covers the trees all year, moss clings to the trunks, and twisted canopies feel like remains from millions of years ago. In some areas of the archipelago, the ground is so hot that just 3 feet below the surface, temperatures can reach about 752 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to cook food naturally. This place was once a stopping point in the history of ocean trade, creating a community with a unique cultural mix from Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Beyond its overwhelming beauty, this archipelago is proof of nature's creative power, where the brightest life always rises strongly from the ashes of destruction. Waimangu Volcanic Valley, New Zealand. Not over millions of years, Waimangu was born after the disaster of 1886, when the ground was torn into an 11-mile fissure in about 4 hours. From that geothermal wound, green steam-covered hills, boiling lakes, and mineral springs formed, turning the valley into the youngest geothermal system on Earth. What puzzles scientists is that nearby lakes can rise, fall, heat, and cool in opposite rhythms, as if an unmapped underground pipe network is hidden below. Some hot pools appear blue, red, or rusty from silica, iron oxide, and toxic minerals, yet they almost do not mix, even when only a few steps apart. From a geyser that once reached 1,509 feet and then stopped forever to invisible carbon dioxide zones, Waimangu feels like a young volcanic body still breathing, with many mechanisms not fully explained. Colca Canyon, Peru. In the Andes of Peru, Colca Canyon opens like a giant crack, more than 10,500 feet deep, nearly twice as deep as the Grand Canyon, and exposing the fierce power of Earth's crust. This canyon was lifted by the collision between the Nazca and South American plates, then shaped by lava, volcanic ash, and erosion over millions of years. What puzzles geologists is that the river at the bottom seems too small for such a massive abyss, as if ancient tectonic mechanisms still remain partly unknown. Invisible warm air rising from the cliffs lifts Andean condors for hours, while iron and sulfur minerals stain the canyon walls red and yellow like burning wounds. Underground heat zones, magnetic disturbances, and isolated microclimates deep in the abyss make Colca a natural wonder whose geological mechanisms science still cannot fully explain. Bonifacio, France. Bonifacio looks like a town hanging on the edge of the sky, where old houses stand beside white cliffs about 230 feet high and look straight down into the deep blue sea. Those cliffs were formed from countless layers of ancient sea life. Then waves carved 33 to 49 feet into their base, making the town above seem almost weightless. A sea inlet nearly 1 mile long cuts deep into the land and creates a sheltered natural harbor, giving this place both dramatic beauty and defensive value for centuries. Because people lived on that fragile edge, they built houses, walls, and 187 steps into the stone, turning the cliff into a fortress, blended with nature. When sunset paints the cliff's orange-pink and salty mist rises from below, Bonifacio appears like a beauty, slowly disappearing under the endless erosion of the sea. Bonifacio, France. Bonifacio looks like a town hanging on the edge of the sky, where old houses stand beside white cliffs about 230 feet high and look straight down into the deep blue sea. Those cliffs were formed from countless layers of ancient sea life. Then waves carved 33 to 49 feet into their base, making the town above seem almost weightless. A sea inlet nearly 1 mile long cuts deep into the land and creates a sheltered natural harbor, giving this place both dramatic beauty and defensive value for centuries. Because people lived on that fragile edge, they built houses, walls, and 187 steps into the stone, turning the cliff into a fortress, blended with nature. When sunset paints the cliff's orange-pink and salty mist rises from below, Bonifacio appears like a beauty, slowly disappearing under the endless erosion of the sea. Las Gachas, Colombia. In the shallow waters of Colombia, Las Gachas appears like a red-purple stone slab carved with round holes, making the stream look more like the surface of another planet than Earth. These holes form when whirlpools carry pebbles that drill into the rock over long periods, but their high density and smooth round shapes still make the natural process hard to believe. The bright red color does not come from the water, but from iron oxide and minerals in the rock, making the stream bed look like glowing red ore under sunlight. The stone surface is unusually slippery because of a very thin layer of microorganisms and algae, which can reduce friction when wet and turn the stream into a dangerous smooth floor. In the dry season, hundreds of round holes appear clearly across the single rock slab, making Las Gachas feel like a geological wonder where water, minerals, and time created natural geometry still difficult to fully explain. Skadar Lake National Park, Montenegro, and Albania. Between the limestone mountains of the Balkans, Lake Skadar appears as a body of water that never stays still, changing from 143 to 205 square miles between the dry and rainy seasons. Beneath its calm surface are sinkholes nearly 197 feet deep and underground rivers that constantly renew the water, keeping the lake clear and emerald green. That environment has turned this place into a wild world for more than 280 bird species, especially giant pelicans with wingspans nearly 10 feet wide flying across the lake. On the surface, millions of lily pads and water flowers create a floating maze where long wooden boats move almost without sound. During foggy mornings, the lake reflects the Rocky Mountains and sky so perfectly that the border between land and water disappears, making the whole landscape feel like a silent world floating in the air. Anaga Rural Park, Spain. In the mist of northeastern Tenerife, Anaga appears like an ancient forest left from millions of years ago, where laurel trees still survive as living fossils of Earth. What puzzles biologists is that this 7 to 9 million-year-old forest survived the ice ages, while most similar vegetation in Europe disappeared completely. Altitude and ocean moisture create a sea of clouds over the mountain slopes. Then the forest canopy catches the fog and turns it into water that feeds the ecosystem on a dry volcanic island. More than 120 endemic species growing in this isolated space make Anaga feel like an ancient gene archive, where evolution seems to follow its own path away from the rest of the world. Exposed volcanic cores, small magnetic disturbances, and thick fog swallowing the paths make Anaga one of the natural wonders with many mechanisms still not clearly explained. Isle of Skye, Scotland. It feels like another planet left behind in the ocean, where nature is not polished smooth, but shows its power through wild, rocky landforms. This is not a softly peaceful land, because wind, rain, and the sea keep striking the rock surface, creating strange and rough formations. Because of its complex terrain, the weather here can change like 4 seasons in 1 hour, with average annual rainfall reaching more than 80 inches. When strong ocean winds blow upward along the cliffs, waterfalls can be pushed back into the air, creating a surreal scene where water seems to flow upward. Offshore, cliffs more than 1,000 feet high drop straight into the sea, where powerful waves smash against the rock base and throw up giant white columns of foam. Salto del Agrio, Argentina. Inside a dark, rocky canyon, Salto del Agrio falls like a bright, toxic waterfall, where the water is not clear blue, but glows with warning colors of lemon yellow and emerald green. These strange colors come from sulfur, iron, and many minerals underground, making the water so acidic that almost no aquatic life can survive. As the acidic water keeps flowing over the basalt walls, the whole canyon is stained with blood, red, fiery orange, rusty yellow, and neon green colors. From about 148 feet high, the waterfall drops into a half-circle stone basin, creating a scene like an ancient arena carved by nature into volcanic rock. This place is called Salto del Agrio, meaning sour waterfall, because the water contains sulfur, iron, and acidic minerals, giving it a sharp, sour taste and making it impossible to drink. Thingvellir National Park, Iceland. Thingvellir does not overwhelm people with high mountains or giant waterfalls, but with silent cracks where 2 continents are still pulling the ground apart. The North American and Eurasian tectonic plates move away from each other by about 1 inch each year, sinking the valley floor more than 131 feet over 10,000 years and leaving deep rock scars on the surface. Meltwater from glaciers passes through volcanic rock for 30 to 100 years, becoming naturally filtered until the blue cracks are clear enough to see about 328 feet deep. On this moving geological foundation, in the year 930, Viking settlers chose outdoor cliffs as a meeting place for Parliament, turning the power of nature into an early political space. That is why Thingvellir is not only beautiful scenery, but a place where Earth time and human history appear together inside one single crack. Rio de Fogo, Brazil. On the northeastern coast of Brazil, Rio de Fogo appears where the river and the Atlantic Ocean collide, creating dark, winding streams between white sand and hidden coral reefs. What makes this place mysterious is that the tide can retreat extremely fast, revealing clear, natural pools trapped between coral structures with unusually even height. Coastal plants still survive on salty, dry sand, while their water-holding mechanism continues to make many biologists curious. From the red glow that made ancient sailors think the river was burning to mirror-like pools reflecting the sky, Rio de Fogo becomes a coastal wonder where many natural phenomena remain not fully explained. Fiordo di Furore, Italy. This place feels like a deep crack where sea and mountain collide, trapping the sound of waves and wind inside the cliffs until the whole gorge seems to roar with fury. That narrow and deep structure creates a separate world at the bottom, where cold mountain water meets warm sea water, while rock shade keeps the air cool and cut off from the Mediterranean summer. Because the stone beach and old fishing houses are hidden from offshore view, this place once became a natural shelter for fishermen during centuries of danger at sea. Later, An arched bridge about 98 feet high was placed across the two rock walls, carrying the road above, while the houses carved into stone remained quiet below, like bird nests in the gorge. At noon, when rare sunlight falls straight into the narrow crack, the dark water turns turquoise, proving that its beauty comes from isolation, sound, and light, not from luxury. Mount Chimera, Turkey. On the slope of Mount Chimera, dozens of natural flames have burned continuously for more than 2,500 years, making this place feel like a land from mythology. In Greek mythology, people believed the monster Chimera was buried under this mountain, so the flames rising from the rocks are seen as its breath. When night falls, small flames flicker on the dark rocky mountainside, creating an eerie feeling as if you are standing between the real world and the world of myth. This sacred power once made ancient people build temples beside the fire vents, turning the site into a solemn place for worshipping the fire god Hephaestus. What makes it special is that visitors today can come very close, sit around the ancient flames to make tea, cook food, and feel the heat rising from the ground. Lucerne, Switzerland. Like a fairy tale painting reflected on jade green water, this city rests between a glacial lake 702 feet deep and limestone mountains nearly 6,890 feet high. The lake was shaped by ancient glacier erosion, so its clear water changes color with the light and sometimes becomes a perfect mirror for the Alps. Pure meltwater from the mountains helps keep the city unusually fresh, and water from public fountains can be drunk directly. In this setting, covered wooden bridges from the 14th century, roof paintings, old watchtowers, and fresco-covered housefronts turn the city into an open museum of the Middle Ages. When sunset paints the mountain peaks pink and red, the soft sound of water beside a steamship and white swans on the river make Lucerne one of Switzerland's most romantic corners. Katmai National Park, United States. From a once proud mountain peak, this place now opens like a giant collapse, where a 2-mile basin holds a lake nearly 800 feet deep and blue like jade. After the powerful eruption of the early 20th century, ash reached the stratosphere and made skies across the northern hemisphere glow red for months at sunset. Groundwater met hot ash and once created tens of thousands of steam columns rising up to 500 feet, leaving deep cracks like a planet cooling after fire. In this wild land, brown bears can weigh more than 1,000 pounds, standing in bright water as they wait for salmon under the morning light. With no road connection, people must arrive by seaplane, as if nature wants Katmai to remain a kingdom only open to those with real patience. Antalya Caves, Turkey. Beneath the dry, rocky mountains of Antalya, water has silently hollowed out the ground for millions of years, creating a deep, dark cave world with giant stone chambers and cold emerald lakes. The farther you move inside, the stranger the landscape becomes, as fast underground rivers connect with lakes more than 49 feet deep, making some cave sections reachable only by boat. In that darkness, mineral-rich drops of water fell for ages and formed stalactites, stalagmites, and stone columns up to 33 feet high. Sharp stone points cover the cave ceiling like the teeth of a giant creature, but behind narrow cracks, huge spaces suddenly open like a hidden cathedral beneath the earth. More than a beautiful and frightening geological wonder, this cave system also preserves traces of ancient humans from over 500,000 years ago. Berchtesgaden National Park, Germany. Hidden deep in the harsh Alps, this place is striking because of its giant limestone walls rising straight into the sky, creating a beauty that feels both majestic and cold. Below those high and dangerous cliffs, emerald lakes lie quietly in the valley, making the landscape feels strongly contrasted but deeply captivating. The largest central lake reaches a maximum depth of about 630 feet, stays cold all year, and is so clean that it is considered safe enough to drink directly. When thick clouds and mist flow down from the cliffs, the whole area feels separated from the outside world, becoming mysterious and isolated among the mountains and forests. This rugged and hard-to-reach terrain once made the highest mountain area here a fortified hideout for the elite of an infamous dictatorship during World War II. Tumpak Sewu, Indonesia. Tumpak Sewu is beautiful because it does not fall like one single waterfall, but opens into a white arc around a green canyon nearly 400 feet deep. Water flows from many cracks in the cliff, forming countless thin layers like silk curtains, making the whole gorge look covered by an endless rain. Beneath those streams, moss, ferns, and tropical forest cover the rock walls, creating a strong contrast between soft emerald green and the powerful white of the falls. The thick spray at the bottom keeps the air cool, while sunlight passing through the mist turns into bright beams and small rainbows. From the bottom of the canyon, white streams falling between green cliffs and thick mist make Tumpak Sewu feel like a giant curtain, hiding the heart of the tropical forest. Pasu Konas, Pakistan. In the cold Karakoram, sharp stone peaks tear into the sky like giant fangs, revealing a massive geological scar shaped by violent movements of Earth's crust. Rising up to 20,033 feet, the cliffs are so steep that snow can hardly stay on them, exposing haunting ochre, dark grey, and rusty rock. When the last sunlight hits the rough surface, the whole mountain range seems to turn bright red, changing the horizon into a giant wall of fire around the valley. Below these sky-piercing mountains was once a dangerous section of the ancient Silk Road, where many traders and camel caravans faced snowstorms, ice falls, and deep cliffs. To see this fierce beauty, visitors must cross fragile hanging bridges, where loose wooden planks swing above a fast, muddy river. Spiti Valley, India. Hidden in the giant Himalayas, this valley appears like a freezing desert with the rusty look of Mars, showing how icy winds have harshly carved the surface of Earth. Because mountains over 19,700 feet high block the wet clouds, this valley gets less than 7 inches of rain each year, so the land stays bare and has very little green life. In that empty and harsh landscape, white monasteries with red roofs still cling to cliff edges, looking like silent fortresses floating in the sky. The temperature range here is extreme, with winter dropping to -22 degrees Fahrenheit and freezing every stream, while summer at 86 degrees Fahrenheit can still burn skin because UV rays pass through the thin air. With narrow roads running along deep cliffs and settlements standing above 14,400 feet, Spiti Valley becomes one of the clearest examples of how humans survive in extreme nature. Simpson Desert, Australia. In the burning heart of Australia, the Simpson Desert appears like a giant red barcode, where more than 1,100 parallel dunes stretch almost endlessly across an empty landscape. The mystery is that some dune ridges reach 124 miles long and rarely cross each other, as if ancient winds combed billions of tons of sand into ordered lines. The bright red color comes from iron oxide coating quartz grains, yet why the color became so dense and uniform still raises questions about ancient climate conditions. Stone tools found hundreds of miles from their original rock sources suggest materials were once moved across this harsh sea of dunes, although the method remains unclear. The strangest mystery is that after rare floods, small fish can suddenly appear in pools far from rivers, making the Simpson feel like a natural laboratory of sand, water, and hidden life. Ilulissat Icefjord, Greenland. In this harsh, frozen world, Ilulissat Icefjord feels like a giant ice factory, where the inland ice sheet keeps breaking apart and pushing billions of tons of ice into the ocean each year. On the water, icebergs more than 328 feet high drift like blue-white towers, but the visible part is only a small piece of the huge body hidden deep below. The scenery may look silent, but it is often torn apart by cracking ice, thunder like collapses, and powerful waves rising after giant blocks fall into the sea. Many icebergs have a deep blue color because the ice has been compressed for thousands of years, forcing most of the air inside to disappear and making the ice clearer, as if it were glowing on the sea. Each year, this ice fjord releases about 8 to 11 cubic miles of ice, and many scientists believe the iceberg that sank the Titanic was born from this violent, frozen region. Azores Islands, Portugal. Rising from the North Atlantic, this archipelago feels like a green volcanic paradise, where the deep sea and underground heat create an important shelter for whales. The strangest and most overwhelming features here are giant volcanic basins several miles wide, like scars left after eruptions collapsed entire mountains. Just beneath the lush green grass, Earth still seems to growl as white steam keeps rising from cracks and reminds us that volcanic heat is still alive. The coast here does not have long, white sand beaches, but steep black rock walls, hundreds of feet high, constantly torn by huge Atlantic waves day and night. Once a harsh whaling center in the 19th century, this archipelago has turned toward conservation, changing old whale hunting lookout points into places that protect the giants of the ocean. British Columbia, Canada. Stretching along the west coast of North America, this place feels like a natural fortress where the violent ocean crashes into mountains once carved by glaciers into depths of more than 1,968 feet. Its coastline is more than 15,500 miles long, shaped over time by Pacific waves and cold winds into countless cliffs, narrow inlets, and thick layers of mist. In the wet coastal areas, temperate rainforests grow thick and dark, with many ancient trees rising more than 197 feet and covered in moss, like a world left from ancient times. Within only a few dozen miles, high mountains can block moisture, turning lush green forest into dry, semi-desert land. This is also one of the rare places where many grizzly bears and cougars live, reminding visitors that in this wild nature, humans are not always the ones in control. German Channel, Palau. Torn open by tons of explosives in 1909, this man, made scar over 3,280 feet long, was cut through ancient coral reefs as a shortcut for mineral ships. But the narrow channel turns this place into a giant funnel, forcing ocean currents to stir up the seafloor into a plankton snowstorm and create an endless food source. Thanks to that rich food source, this place becomes a hunting ground for reef sharks, giant manta rays, and countless schools of fish, often called the center of the Amazon rainforest under the sea. To protect this rich marine world, every visitor must sign an ecological pledge in their passport and take responsibility if they harm nature. From a brutal past shaped by the greed for minerals, this wonder has now become powerful proof of the ocean's great ability to recover itself. Lagunas de Montebello National Park, Mexico. In the wet forests of southern Mexico, this place appears like a maze filled with lakes of magical colors. It has nearly 60 lakes connected by complex underground tunnels, forming a mysterious water system hidden deep beneath the limestone plateau. The most overwhelming thing is that lakes sitting close together can still show different colors, from turquoise and deep blue to emerald, because depth, minerals, and sunlight keep changing. Under the ground, water is still wearing away the limestone, causing some areas to collapse and form water pits more than 131 feet deep. When rainforest, ferns, and trees gripping the rock walls reflect on the still lake surface, this place feels like a world forgotten by time. Ball's Pyramid, Australia. In the violent ocean of Australia, Ball's Pyramid rises like a black stone blade 1,844 feet high, standing almost vertical on a base so narrow it seems ready to break at any moment. This rock is the hard basalt core left from a 7 million-year-old volcano after the sea eroded and swallowed the softer volcanic body around it. What makes geologists curious is how its tall, thin, and isolated shape has survived ocean storms, huge waves, and strong winds for tens of thousands of years. The greatest biological mystery appeared in 2001, when only 24 giant stick insects, once thought extinct, were found living on a single bush 328 feet above the sea. With no beach or gentle shore, Ball's Pyramid drops straight into the ocean, like the remnant of a sunken world, where stone, waves, and life still challenge simple explanations. Keukenhof, Netherlands. Waking for only 8 weeks each spring, this 79-acre garden appears like a giant velvet carpet where red, yellow, orange, and purple flower bands weave into one another. Few people know that this splendid landscape was not first made for art, but began as a kitchen garden in the 15th century, growing herbs and vegetables for noble meals. In 1949, 20 leading flower exporters turned the garden into a huge outdoor stage to show the power of the Dutch flower industry to the world. Even with its massive scale, all 7 million bulbs are still planted by hand by exactly 40 gardeners over 3 autumn months, using traditional tools. The luxury of millions of flowers here also recalls the tulip fever of the 17th century, when one striped bulb could once be worth as much as a fine mansion. Le Mont Brabant, Mauritius. Rising 1,824 feet above the Indian Ocean, this massive rock is not only a towering natural fortress, but also an unbreakable symbol of the human desire for freedom. Its rugged and almost isolated terrain once made it a final refuge for many enslaved people who escaped during the 18th and 19th centuries. Connected to that painful history is a legend from 1835 when many people jumped into the sea because they thought soldiers had come to capture them, although the visitors were actually bringing news that slavery had been abolished. Beyond its historical meaning, this place is also famous for the underwater waterfall illusion, created when sand and mud are pulled by ocean currents into deep water, making the sea look as if it is falling into an abyss. Recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, this mountain has become powerful proof that even when people can be imprisoned, the desire for freedom can never be destroyed. Lake Bled, Slovenia. Like an emerald from a fairy tale, Lake Bled is enchanting with clear water, a small island, an old church, and snowy mountains all around it. The lake sits at 1,558 feet above sea level, covers about 0.56 square miles, and reaches a depth of up to 100 feet, making it peaceful yet surprisingly deep. On the small island in the middle of the lake, the old church is linked to a legendary wishing bell, and legend says that if someone rings it 3 times with a sincere heart, their wish will come true. To reach the island, visitors still ride handmade wooden boats built in a tradition that is hundreds of years old, with rowing skills passed down only within certain families. On the cliff beside the lake, the castle dates back to the year 1011 and was once home to powerful bishops, adding ancient depth to the beauty of this place. Teide National Park, Spain. On Tenerife, Teide does not only rise as Spain's highest mountain, but also stands as a giant volcano rooted in the ocean floor with a total height of more than 24,606 feet. Around the peak lies a 10-mile-wide caldera, created when an ancient mountain section collapsed instead of exploding, leaving a geological structure that still raises many scientific questions. Although the landscape looks like a volcanic desert, sulfur vents reaching 187 degrees Fahrenheit show that beneath the black rock, the geothermal system is not fully asleep. Among lava, pumice, and extreme temperature changes, endemic red flowers still rise each spring, making the dead land look as if it is sprouting fire. When clouds stay below the mountain and the night sky becomes clear enough for the Milky Way to appear sharply, Teide becomes a place where ancient fire, life, and the universe create a natural mystery hard to explain. Fiordland National Park, New Zealand. This place has unbelievably steep terrain, where sky-high granite cliffs drop straight into deep black water, and sunlight almost never reaches the bottom. Over millions of years, glaciers carved deep into the hard rock, creating fjords that can reach about 1,312 feet deep and making the whole landscape feel overwhelming. With annual rainfall reaching up to 276 inches, Fiordland National Park is often covered in mist, and after each rain, thousands of waterfalls pour straight from the cliffs into the fjord. This endless rain creates a layer of fresh water over the salty surface, blocking sunlight from passing through and making the fjord look black like ink. Around that dark, deep water, dense temperate rainforest spreads across the land, with ancient ferns and green moss covering the rocks, making the whole area look from afar like it is wearing a quiet, green velvet coat.